How you doing, everyone? Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be playing the what if game. We're going to start with Cleary, for example. What if he doesn't get named? But they're going to go through a bunch of other players, whether it be a mid-range guy, whether they be a just above cheapy level, whether it be the 350k guys that we have in our size at the moment, or whether it's going to be a keeper. And we're going to just play the what if in terms of and get you guys thinking about, if they don't score well first game, what do you do with them? Are you going to panic trade them? Are you going to hold strong with them? Do you know if they're going to be a volatile player and they could get a 35 and get an 80? Someone like Lucy Leilua, for example, is someone we can start with. And for me, with him, he's someone who is very much a 35 to 40 scorer, and then he could get an 80. So if like exactly what he got in the trial, for example. So if he's someone that you're thinking about putting in your side, there's a great chance that he can get 40 in the first game. If he does that, what are you going to do? Are you going to trade him out? Are you going to be okay to give him a few weeks? What if he gets 2 40s in a row? That's something to think about with someone like Lucy. Do you want that in your side from the start? Even though he's someone that's going to average a bit over 50 or somewhere projected, I'm projecting somewhere near his average from last year, maybe slightly above, if anything. But is that going to be okay for you to have in your side, that kind of volatility? All right, so we'll start with Cleary on that one. If he doesn't make your number, say round 1, do you start with him? I personally think if he's not even on the 21, then there's a chance that means he might not be back until round 2 or 3. Or it definitely won't be back until at least round 2, and maybe even round 3. And I think there's just too much money to sit on your reserves, especially if look at our people squad here, which I've put together. We've got Harry Grant as well, so that will be a couple of red dots. So I don't think that can be possible. But let's just actually quickly look at the people squad before we go through this. So in the Discord group, guys, the link's going to be in the description. It's also down there on the screen. But these are the guys that I think I've put together the list of players that have been most wanted in our Discord group in the People's Squad tab. Harry Grant was clearly the most important hooker to have, along with Randall. So that's the combination we're going to go with there, definitely. And a lot of the other positions, apart from, say, Cleary and Payne Haas and Ewan Aiken, I'd say they were the clearest guys. And then a few of the cheapies like Ilias and stuff. Anyway, everyone else is up for debate and up for trade. Basing things off team lists tomorrow, for example. A couple other guys that's a little bit contentious in terms of numbers. It could have gone either way with a few of them. And then we're going to work out what's going to be best for the balance of the side. If you look at it at this stage, we're going to be having Arrow in our edge, for example. We might not have to play Tuolangi or Nanai, for example, there. Kurt Mann will go into the starting side for mids as well when he gets that duel. So we'll have a mixture of guys off the bench. So that starting team will look a little bit better with Arrow and Kurt Mann in there. We also have 66k remaining. Let me know what you guys think. That's obviously a little bit of a screenshot there as to what I've just come up with, based on those numbers that we've come up with in the People Squad chat. All right, so if we were to remove Cleary, right, the reason I'm doing this video now is to remove some of the panic that a few guys are going to have if he doesn't get named, for example. And I know we've only got a couple of days to make our team. So if you're not picking Cleary, then your second best option by far is going to be DCE. And he'll be a great captaincy option. It'll be DCE, and then you've got guys like Payne Haas, which would be great as well to captain. Right? So DCE is your second best in terms of average, and then Payne from there. So that's definitely an option. If you did that, right, you then have a couple 100k up your sleeve, 294. And if you look at the types of players in our sides, you could then look at someone like Rocco Berry was fairly late in terms of pick in our People Squad group. Not too many people were super keen on him. So you could then move on from Rocco, and we'd have 650k to play with there, right? So we can scroll it down and make it nice and simple if we were to pick. Okay, cool. If we want another mid, for example, we could go Adam Fanua-Blake, and that would mean we have a fair bit of cash up top, but that's a decent option. For example, Dylan Brown somewhere there. Pap, we could go double up on a wing fullback if he's starting. That's going to be a cool one there. So maybe let's just go with Pap as an easy option there. If we're not picking up Payne Haas, you could go DCE or Haas as captain is fine. And then Pap would come in and start for Pereira, for example. So that would look pretty solid. Pretty simple, right? That's definitely an easy way to get, now you're removing one clear gun in Cleary and you get 2 guns, one in Pap and one in DCE. So I wouldn't be stressing too much on what could happen there. Let's remove those 2 guys, for example, now. And if we would go a little bit cheaper than DCE, if you went for 800 and didn't want to go the 822k route, then you could go someone else you think has a little bit, maybe a little bit more value at a little bit of a cheaper price. I know TK is pretty high, for example, on Mitch Moses, which is a cool one. Cody Walker's another solid one who's going to be, looking after that, his team there, the Rabbitohs, along with Ilias. So you could start with both of them. You could go with someone like Burton, who could be cool. So if we decide to go the cheaper route and we want to start with Matty, then that's sweet there. We then have 881k for that one player, right? But that could be split up into two positions. If we wanted, a couple of 600k guys, whether that was, even if we wanted to go Pap, then we'd have 250k to play with in another position. 250k added onto Amon. If we were to play with that one there, let's go for Pap at 636. So we can have an extra gun in our wing fullbacks, for example. Let's move that around just to make it look, just to make it look a little bit better. So sub in for Geordie, and then we would upgrade Junior Amon in that one there. So we'd have what did you say, 595k. If you wanted to do that, we'll just scroll right down, nice and quick. So 595k, bunch of guys on that list that we could go through there. Guys like Brooks, Manu, Welch, we've spoken about as probably being solid options, all three of them, in terms of guns and slight mid-ranger in Christian. You can then look at guys like Jack Whiten, who I'm probably not as high on at this stage, just with what's happened with Fogs. I thought that was going to really help him out. But Junior Paulo, for example, is an option in that price point. We've already got the Stefanos and the Arrows. Nakora, someone a few people are interested in, for example. Jack Bird. A bunch of different guys there, right? But if let's just say we selected one of them, let's go with Paulo as well. All right, Junior Paulo. So that would leave us with some even better depth. If we were to then go Bully more to Paulo, we now have three really strong mids, for example. Our edge would include Arrow. We'd leave man on the interchange, which would have make a nice strong interchange there. We're obviously pretty light then on the halves with Burton, Ilias, with Schneider as some backup. Kurt Mann could also be a backup. We could start with Kurt Mann in there. Either way, it wouldn't matter, but we're probably going to play Ilias. Then you have a gun in the centers. You have two guns in the wing fullback. So that would that would even out the team pretty well. And that's that's meaning everyone isn't starting with Cleary. So I really don't see that as an option, as a bad option, even if Cleary's out. So just really, this whole video was just to make everyone relax a little bit heading into round one. If Cleary doesn't get named, if Pap doesn't get named, same thing, right? But he doesn't carry as much cap as someone like Cleary. Okay, let's play the what if game with guys in our side. Grant misses round one. If Grant comes back in round two and gets a 45 and plays 65 minutes, what do you do? What if, right? What do you do if that happens? Do you trade him out straight away? Are you like, oh wow, if you say Brandon Smith comes in and plays 15, covers him for 15 minutes in the hooking position to get Brandon and Smithy's numbers up to 65 minutes or something like that. So they're all playing pretty high minutes, but not a full game. Do you trade him out? Do you give him a few more weeks? Right? That's something to think about. That could happen, right? He could come in and get 80 first game and the second game and the third game, but he could also do that. So just think about that in your team if you're going to be doing that. Payne Haas, pretty unlikely he's going to score anything below a 45-50, so I probably wouldn't be worried about him. Someone like Junior Paulo is a lot more volatile for sure. So if we typed him in here, you can have a look at a bunch of his scores, and he's someone I'm not super high on for reasons that we'll go through in a second. But he's someone that's very, very volatile. Priced at 46 with an average of 44. You look at a bunch of his scores. He started awesome last year, played 2 60-minute games, which isn't going to be too regular if you look at what happened last year with his minutes, but 2 tries in those games. If he comes out and does what he did from round 3 all the way to round 12, 39, 47, 27, 33, 47, 24, 46, 38, and 40, right? And it doesn't get any better until round 19, right? So 2 great games. A lot of people picked him up, and then he went absolutely terrible, right? And if you're picking him up, yes, we're looking at some offloading stats is going to be a little bit better that we're going to be helped out with in terms of his improved scoring. But he is someone that tackle busts as well. Just be aware of that. I think that it's only a 1.8 improvement on his scores, and I don't see where he gets extra improvements from. He has games with 68 minutes. He has games with 62, 56 minutes, and he still gets 27, 47, 39, right? I just don't see the benefit in him. And if he's someone that comes out and gets a few of those scores at the start, are you going to trade him out? I think you probably will. I don't see you continuing to persevere with someone like him if Stefano's out there pumping out 60 minutes and getting 50s, 48s, 50. He's making some money like that. So that's someone to think about. There, Junior Paulo. I'll definitely talk myself out of him if I was ever thinking about it. Similar to Stefano, though, if he's someone that I'm slightly worried about, there's a great chance that he comes out and does really well because he's the main guy in their pack. But if he comes out and gets 45, 50 minutes and picks up low 40s and doesn't really make any cash, something like Tino did last year, that's kind of the comparison I can see is that there. Obviously, Stefano, you got that bunch of games at the back end of last year where he scored a few tries, he got bigger minutes. Does he come out and do that from game one? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And are you prepared to hold on to him if he has a couple of bad games or a couple of 40s, for example, rather than the 50 plus that a lot of people are expecting from him? Something to think about. What are we doing with these cheaper edges, Tuolangi and Nanai? Are you happy to hold on to them if Tuolangi gets moved back to the bench? Are you just going to cop that? That's the lucky thing you can do with these type of price players, is that they're not gonna kill your overall team results. It's more those mid ranges that we've really got to think about. And do you exactly want them in your side? Nanai obviously at 350 is a bit more expensive, and he has to get big minutes to score pretty well. So that's something to think about with him. Is that worth playing that 350k guy, or do you spend up bigger in this position and maybe have one cheaper edge? They could cover, whether it be Bullymore, who we probably have a bit more of an idea of how he's going to go. He's played the trials, and Nanai hasn't done that, for example. But moving to Arrow, for example. He's someone that's a lot more consistent, and you can tell it's more around a minutes thing for him. If he can get those minutes, he's going to be more consistent. I can see him, even if he comes in and pumps out a 43 or 45 in the first game, you're like, okay, cool, that was pretty well his base, and he has some room for tries on that left edge. He has some room for the odd offload or tackle break, or maybe they have a big tackling game and he gets 40 tackles in 100 meters, he picks up 50 points. So I find him to be more consistent than a few guys, and he's someone I'm not too worried about. Kurt Mann as well, he's going to be getting a lot of his stats through tackles. He's going to run the ball a little bit and has the odd tackle break in him. So he's someone that could very simply and easily get to his base of, let's say 40, and then has some upside from there. So he's, again, someone I'm not too worried about. Burton has a lot of opportunities to score points, across the field, whether he's going to be running the ball, tackling, kicking goals, assisting. There's a lot of things that he can do in the game to get a sort of a generic base. And at 593k, yes, it's fairly expensive, but he should have a base around that 40 mark. And if he gets that first round, you're not going to be completely upset about it. I think that's kind of the low that he's going to sit, but he has those upside games. So he can very easily come out and dominate first game. He's got two easier games to start off with, Broncos and Cowboys, I believe, and then a bunch of harder ones. So maybe he's going to be a little bit more volatile, dominate against the lesser teams, and struggle a little bit against others, or he's going to be kicking a lot, out of trouble, tackling a lot. There's just a bunch of ways he can score points. So he's someone we're not going to be too worried about. But again, owned by 30% of teams, that's probably the biggest one for him. Is that he has to score over 50. Is he going to do that all the time? Probably not. Is he fairly safe in terms that he's got a chance to score a lot of points across the board? Then I think yes. Guys like Ewan Aitken, obviously there's some risk in terms of him getting moved back to the centres or getting a bench spot, but I think that's fairly low. And if you take how he played moving into the second row last year as anything to go by coming into this year, that you should see that a fair bit of improvement, I think, from him in his actual gameplay. He'd really never trained on the edge, for example, and then got thrust into that role at the back end of last year. And he's had a full preseason with a fair bit of time to get better at that position. He's a little bit cheaper than someone like Burton. So again, you're getting him at a price of 43 for someone that has averaged over 50 in that edge position. So he's someone to think about. You got someone like Nico Hines, obviously some risk being in a new position, but again, has the goal kicking, runs the ball a lot. He's going to tackle. He's going to score in a lot of different ways. In a team that's going to be a little bit better than the Dogs. That's where I see the benefit to Hines. He has that dual position as well, and he's just going to be in a better team and more opportunities to score points. So I think that's solid there. Crichton is someone I'm not too worried about. I think he's going to be fairly stock standard, maybe that 25 to 30 base. and then upside with tries, tackle breaks, and offloads with some assists as well in the centres. So he's someone I wouldn't be too worried about. And then Pap, it's more a worry of does he start slowly. So if he plays round one, yes, the Storm could go decent, but he could have a fairly quiet one and not have to do as much. He might just kick goals only. He has been the moon boot. Has it been his right foot? Just a question for anyone. Let me know in the comments. But that's something to think about with him. Then we can have a little play with guys on the side here. Yeah, Trebojevic, for example, if you're going to pick him up, if he scores a 40 first game, do you trade him out? If he scores a 50 and a 45, do you trade him out? He's priced way over that. Obviously in the high 70s to 80 there. So are you prepared to hold him and hold his big price drops if he doesn't start as well? Something to think about. DCE as well, I think he's going to be fairly consistent, but he is also someone that can get 40 and then get 100 to have that 70 average, for example. A lot of these guys are the same. For Fido, is he going to be playing 80 minutes straight away? Do you play him? Do you pop him in your team straight away at that high price? Papali, is he going to get 80 minutes on the edge? Is he going to be able to score a lot of tries like he did last year? Lots of things to think about with him. Reid Mane, again, started really well last year, so is he able to do that again? Is there Mitch Rain, someone on the bench to take some minutes from him? Again, all things are going to be answered in team lists, but these are just questions I want you to think of, yes, before team list tomorrow, but also following that, even if they're named in their exact positions, just looking at all the different factors that are at play. And will you be able to hold strong with these guys after round one or after round two when they don't start as well? That's the question to ask yourself, and that's something that I probably didn't ask myself enough last year with guys like Damien Cook. We looked at what he did in the trials, and I kind of went, he'll just be fine. And then in round one, he just didn't get involved as much, just tackled a little bit, and he had his lowest score in a long time. Yes, it was very much an outlier game, but still across the season, he averaged a bit less than what he did the year before and just didn't have the same role. So just being aware that those things can happen, and how are you going to react to it? I reacted by trading him out, and he picked up 100 the next week. Yeah, still didn't have an amazing season overall, but I picked up his 37 or whatever he started with, and then moved him on. Not wasted a trade, but probably could have kept him and done elsewhere. I brought Fafita in, for example, and was happy with that. But that's something there. Guys like Josh Jackson. This is where these guys are really cool to just plug and play, because you know what kind of output they're going to get. That's where I was talking about that video last time about someone like Stefano. If I had the extra cash, for example, then I decided to put in Dylan Brown, who I think is really consistent. The tackles, he got some upside in the running meters, and also the try assists and tries, which he didn't have many of last year. So, and in a good team that's going to be playing some weaker sides to start the year, I thought that was a better use of my money. That I know that even if he gets a 45 first round, that was one of his worst games. You know what I mean? Whereas he got some 60s, 65s to go in there without trying too hard as well, with maybe one decent play. Whereas Stefano has to get those big minutes and has to be the dominant force that he was at the back end to get those points, for example. There's a bunch of guys along this list that are going to be pretty consistent. Even guys like Munster, for example, he gets a lot of points just for his running game and across the board with so many different ways to score points. So he's fairly consistent. Similar with Teddy, for example. Obviously gets the tries himself. Just the consistent run meters up near the 200 all the time, and his tackle breaks and stuff to follow. So there are a bunch of guys to think about. Brandon Smith, if you think about him, the minutes, if he doesn't get the minutes first game, what are you going to do? There's every chance that, even if we look at Paulo, for example, the minutes can change pretty regularly, right? He's got 60 the first couple of games, he's got a 47, a 62, 56, then two 49s, a 42 off the bench, obviously, but a 68, a 49. And this can all change due to minutes and injuries. Sorry, is what I meant. Injuries and sin bins and stuff like that. Guys will play a bit more. So just be aware of that going into the first few rounds as well. But that's probably all I want to talk about in this video. Just introduce that People Squad. If you haven't voted yet, jump into the People Squad tab. After team list, we'll add either add some players or a new system to pick the players that you'd like, for example. But other than that, I suppose the biggest thing now is just jumping into that league. I'm going to make an announcement on Wednesday as to what the prizes are going to be for the top three. But I think we've got just under 1,000 in there at the moment. So Prizes are going to be worthwhile. It's more just fun to get in there and see if you can win this, and you'll be announced well to a lot of people on the YouTube if you're doing well each week, and we'll go from there, guys. So like, subscribe. I really appreciate all your support so far, and we'll catch you in another one, guys. See you later.